4. He can tell you who the quarterback was of Penn State in 1937 and what their record was. Jim is a walking encyclopedia of Penn State facts. He has been to every game that he can get to. He eats, drinks, and sleeps Penn State. Jim, if you go to Jim's house, has a room in his house dedicated entirely to Penn State. It's blue and white. He has a 50-inch flat screen TV so that he can watch the game. He has one wall decorated with his own personal Hall of Fame, most of whom have pictures with Jim and are autographed. He also has, most guys on their desk have a picture of their wife or their family. On Jim's desk, you'll find an autographed picture of Joe Paterno. Right? On another wall, it's dominated by an aerial shot of Beaver Stadium. I mean, when Jim goes to give blood, when they draw the blood, it's blue, okay? When he eats his cereal in the morning, he puts blueberries on every day just so he can see the blue with the white, the milk. Jim is through and through a Penn State fan. You can imagine, Jim couldn't imagine, but you can imagine that when Jim's great-great-aunt died, he had no idea how that would impact his love and his relationship with Penn State. You see, his great-great-aunt was an alumni of Penn State. She was one of the first women graduates, one of the early women graduates, and in fact, her name is somewhere on the campus, the main campus. He didn't really know her very well because they had moved out west, and they didn't have any children, and of course, she's from his grandmother's generation, so they didn't really see each other. Her and her husband had moved out west towards Pittsburgh because her husband's business that he had started up was doing so well. He needed to move out there and take care of that. Actually, it did so well that he sold it at a very young age, invested that money. They could have lived off that money the rest of their life, but he did consulting the rest of his life. And she, who had graduated from Penn State, had a very lucrative job as well. They were very, very well off, and that's putting it mildly. But they had no children. So when Jim received a very official-looking letter from an attorney out in Pittsburgh requesting that he come to the reading of her will, he was a little surprised that it was to him that the letter came. But he went on the day that was agreed upon, and he showed up, and he's sitting there as they're going through the will, and he was, I don't know if there's a word for this in the English language, but close as you can get probably is ecstatic, cloud 9, euphoria, when the lawyer read the line that his great aunt had made a multi-million-dollar donation to Penn State and had purchased a season pass in a skybox for Jim. Do you know what a skybox is? You probably all know. I had to look it up to find out online what a skybox is. But basically a skybox is one of those big climate-controlled rooms that's filled with TVs. It's got catering service. It's got lounge chairs. You can fit lots of people in there. He almost fell off his chair when the lawyer read this line to him. He just closed his eyes, and he could smell the wind blowing across Penn Stadium, and he could see all the people out in the stands below him, and the rain pouring down on them, and him up there sipping his birch beer, and eating his filet mignon, and his new potatoes, his mixed vegetables drenched in butter, and watching Penn State crush Wisconsin. Did they play Wisconsin? Was that good, okay, good. And he was in heaven until the lawyer broke this euphoric vision and continued on to the next line. And then his heaven turned into the other place very suddenly. Just as suddenly as he had entered into heaven, he went south. And he couldn't believe what the lawyer was saying. He asked to read it himself because it was so outlandish. He didn't even know if it was possible what she had put in her will and required of him for this. In her will, he gets the use of the skybox for the entire season. Bring all the friends that he wants. But the condition is that anybody who wants to use the skybox, no matter who they are, whether they're relatives or not, anybody who finds out that this skybox is available is also allowed to use it. Now the vision of him sitting alone or with a few friends, kicking back, drinking and eating and just enjoying the game, turned into a room filled with people, packed like sardines. He gets to the door of the skybox and he can't even get in. The crowd is so tight. He hears somebody inside saying, man, I wish all these people weren't here. He's like, yeah, this is my skybox. That's what I wish. What are all these people doing in my skybox? He talked to the Lord. Is this possible? He says, yeah, but wait till the next line. He says, and an advertisement has to be placed in the newspapers, the major newspapers of Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, announcing that this skybox is available for the use of anybody who shows up. And his dreams crumbled just like that. He thought his year was going to be the year of his life, and it turned into the darkest of despair. Because he knew that when he got to his skybox, he wouldn't even be able to get in. And he left the lawyer's office, broken and dejected, almost wishing that he had not come in the first place. This is how the Jews felt when our passage picks up today. Paul has been traveling around Asia Minor. He has been ministering and witnessing. His missionary work has been focused on Gentiles. He is bringing the good news of the gospel to the Gentiles. And when he comes back to Jerusalem, you remember a few weeks back before Easter, we learned that the Jews in Jerusalem were very nervous. The Christian Jews were very nervous that the people in Jerusalem, the Jews in Jerusalem, were going to riot because Paul had arrived. And they said, we've got to convince these people that you are not against them. We've got to convince the Jews that you are still a Jew, that you love our God, that you love our tradition. And you need to go to the temple and do these things very publicly so that the Jews will celebrate your return and not riot, mob, and lynch you and kill you. So Paul does it. Paul goes to the temple and does these very Jewish things to proclaim to everybody very publicly, I'm a Jew. I love the Jewish tradition. And it backfires. When the foreign Jews see Paul in the temple, they start shouting and accusing him of all sorts of things, mostly against Judaism. And they start a riot, just like the Christian Jews had feared. And they begin to lynch Paul. And that's exactly where our story picks up. Paul begins to make a defense. The soldiers have come. They have removed Paul from the grasp of the crowd, and they have taken him to the barracks, where he's going to be taken in for questioning. As he reaches the steps of the barracks, he asks the guard, can I talk to the crowd? That's where our story picks up. I'm going to invite you to open your Bibles, your pew Bibles, with me to Acts chapter 21 as we look at this passage together. Acts chapter 21 can be found on page 906 of your pew Bibles. Acts 21, and we're going to be picking up near the end of the chapter there, verse 37. Let's read together verses 37 through the end of that chapter, and you'll notice that we're going to kind of stop in mid-sentence. So, just that last word on the line, saying, we're not going to read that last word because that's going to take us into the next chapter. So let's read that page without the last word there, and we'll